Let's see. The podcast host Joe Rogan has offered sincere and humble apologies after footage emerged from him repeatedly using the N-word on his show. The comedian 54, who has a lucrative deal with streaming Spotify, said it was most regretful and shameful thing he has ever had to speak about, but stressed the clips were taken out of context. Rogan has come under fire recently for sharing coronavirus misinformation, prominent musicians, yada 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 yada. The musician also announces she will be leaving. Okay, more people are announcing that they're going to leave. She shared an edited compilation of clips 20 times on her. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, let's see. They're really trying to cancel Joe Rogan. And this is one of those things here where, like, I'm sure he said it. Or when was it? When he was 54? Oh, he is 54. I don't know how old these clips were. Let's see. Addressing the montage in a video posted on Instagram account, Rogan said, I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing I've ever done. Okay. Let's see. Is this the montage? Where's the montage? I'm just trying to look for it on for Instagram.
Happy 2/2 it's in that story.
It's not there. Okay, so she decided to pull her music and podcast from Spotify. Neil Young opened a door. I must walk through it, etc., etc., etc. Okay. I don't see the compilation of Joe Rogan. It's so interesting because people... It's very interesting the way that, like, this cancel culture scenario is working. So I guarantee Joe Rogan said the N-word. Not for nothing. It was unfortunately very common for white people to use it. I guess as a joke. It's a bad joke, but as a joke in the past, and society didn't care because society didn't care about black people. And now we're becoming more educated, and that's changing, obviously. And, like, yeah, it's a bad thing. I've said it before. Like, I'm not altruistic. Like, I grew up during gamer culture. I said horrible shit too, man. I never said it at a black person. But, like, yeah, man, it's like one of those things where, like, you know, let's see. Mashup, I guess, would be the word here. This is his apology. Where's the mashup? Jon Stewart, this is overblown.
Jon Stewart.
Relax. All right.
He's calling you
Okay.
Let's
see. Is there a way to see the mashup? How come I don't know where the fuck it is?
I've ever had to talk about publicly.
I want to watch what he has to say. It's just also very interesting. I thought it was on her account, the mashup. Like, how come I can't find it on here? Did she post? Yeah. I spelled compilation correctly. All right.
Some more controversy surrounding Joe Rogan. It's like how you
not here for this. Let's see.
You've already said D is just like saying she's calling you it's like this boy that he's but starts calling them word. There should be a word like, especially like the word that's about. He says guy, and they're saying allowed to use the word out the word.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, ignorant white person usage of the word, and that's like the thing, because my you know, for a long time I had no understanding of like why black people are like, who cares? It's just a word. And then you get to a point where you finally realize, it takes a lot, but you finally realize that, like, there's no word that you could use against a white person to diminish them, so instantaneously, and so that's why it's so it takes a long time for people to get it. That's really what it boils down to, man. It takes a while to just like get it. And, you know, that's part of growing up, man. I know that he's an older guy, but like again, society just didn't care and we're finally caring. And so like obviously I think it's great for him to be called out. I think it's perfectly fine. The problem I have is the framing of this is to cancel him. And you'll often notice that there will be people, they'll exist, and then once somebody wants to cancel them, they'll dig through all their past and go like, well, look at A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, you know, LMNOP, and they'll continuously use it to deplatform somebody. I don't really think it's fair, you know. I there's nobody that exists today that's immune to you know, that's immune to cancel culture. Really, we've all done really bad things. Unfortunately, some people just do bad things that are worse than, you know. It's so interesting because, again, like everybody does bad things, and it just really depends on. Sometimes it just depends on which bad things get you canceled. You know, it's very like sphere oriented. I'm sure everybody canceling Joe Rogan has done shitty shit in the past, but like whatever they have done isn't something that's being called out, and like whatever. But you know, I don't think you should be canceled. But unfortunately, this is a cancellation attempt. This isn't like, you know, hey, listen, you did this thing in the past. Take accountability. It's like, hey, this apparently that girl, she posted it. Oh yeah, it's like she posted it in order to deplatform Joe Rogan. Yeah, here's the compilation. To deplatform Joe Rogan, and it's just like, why not do this earlier? It seems like she found, you know, this clip, and you know, she's also black, so she probably identifies with them more, and I get it. But it's I don't know. You know, I just feel like it's unfortunately so common that white people use this shit. You know, let's see what we got here.
Hello, friends.
I put it on low increase speed. So
I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks fucking horrible, even to me. Now, I know that to most people, there is no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And
I agree with that. I do think, I don't like the chatting thing. I agree with that. But there is no context a white person should be able to use the word. But also we have to understand that, unfortunately, over the past however many years, like even 5 years ago, there unfortunately was. Like that we were just we've rapidly changed even in the last 5 years, you know? We've rapidly changed in the last 5 years, which is a great thing. But it's always good to try to consider the moral, what were the moral values even of the society like only 5 to 10 years ago. Because unfortunately, like we weren't there. People like we weren't in the same spot. You know, we've moved very quickly. I think part of that's because of online social advocacy, which is a good thing over the past 5 to 10 years. Excuse me, sorry for the burp. So yeah.
And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing. Like that context was part of the clip we were talking about Red Fox, how Red Fox said that word on television in the 1970s and how times have changed so much since then. Or about how Richard Pryor used it as one of the titles of one of his albums. Or I was quoting a Lenny Bruce bit, or I was quoting a Paul Mooney bit, or I was talking about how Quentin Tarantino used it repeatedly in Pulp Fiction, or I was talking about how a Netflix executive, ironically, used it because he was trying to compare it to another offensive word, and he said it out loud, and they fired him. Not calling anybody, or just saying the word out loud. I was also talking about how there's not another word like it in the entire English language, because it's a word where only one group of people is allowed to use it, and they can use it in so many different ways. Like if a white person says that word, it's racist and toxic, but a black person can use it, and it could be a punchline. It could be a term of endearment. It could be lyrics to a rap song. It could be a positive affirmation. It's a very unusual word.
I mean, that is true. It is unusual. I don't think he's arguing that those rules shouldn't. I mean, I understand why those rules exist. Like, it's a reclamation of the word. I think that, I mean, we're probably better off letting the word die off, but that's really none of my business. Like, you know, I'll let it die off, but you know what I mean? Like, I'll stop saying it. But yeah, I get it. And it's weird. The rules are weird. When you look at it like that, the rules do become weird for like ignorant white people. Like I mean, we've all been there. I feel like if you're a white person and you're like, I've never been ignorant, then you're still ignorant. You know what I mean? It's like a weird thing because it's just something that you don't get, because you can't diminish a white person like that with any word. There's no word that you can diminish me for being white. What are you going to call me? You going to call me a cracker? I'm going to laugh. You know what I mean? And then Twitch will ban you. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, though? There's nothing you could do. Like, you could sit here. There's nothing you could say that'll, like, actually mean anything to me, truly, as a white person, that'll put me down. Right? Like, you can call somebody like the F slur for being gay, but like, that's not a white thing. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to empathize when there's no point of empathizing. Like, there's no, not that there's no point. There is a point to try to empathize, but like, there's nothing I can compare it to. Like, there's no equal word at all. And so it gets weird. It's like, why? And then you think, like, why does it matter? It's just a word. And it takes like a lot of understanding to understand, like, why is that word? Why is that word so harsh? And it takes a lot of understanding. And even now, even though I know that we shouldn't be saying it, I still don't truly understand. There's no way I could truly understand because I'll never feel it, you know? And so it takes a while for people to be like, oh, shit, it's not a good word, you know, especially white people, because, you know, we're very dumb on these issues.
But it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist, but whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you fucked up. And I clearly have fucked up.
True.
And that's my intention to express myself in this video, to say, there's nothing I can do to take that back. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment. Because I never thought it would ever be taken out of context and put in a video like that. And now that it is, holy shit, it looks bad. And it's part of also me doing this podcast for thousands of hours, thousands of episodes, over 12 years. I said a lot of fucking stupid shit, which is fine when you're talking about most things, but not when you're talking about race. And there's another clip that I have to address. There's a clip from 11 years ago. I was telling a story on the podcast about how me and my friend Tommy and his girlfriend, we got really high. We were in Philadelphia and we went to go see Planet of the Apes. And we didn't know where we were going. We just got dropped off by a cab and we got dropped off in this all black neighborhood. And I was trying to make the story entertaining. And I said, we got out and it was like we were in Africa. It's like we were in Planet of the Apes. I did not, nor would I ever say that black people are apes, but it sure fucking sounded like that. And I immediately afterwards said,
did he say that he got off in Africa, or did he get off in the Planet of the Apes?
I did not. We were in, and it was like we were in Africa. And I said, we got out, and it was like we were in Africa. It's like we were in Planet of the Apes.
Is that what he said? Jesus, that one's a little rough, man. Epic racism moment. Jesus Christ. I mean, listen, that's an obviously very edgy joke. It's pretty shitty. I mean, yeah, that one's pretty hard to defend. I mean, listen, like I was saying before, you know what I mean? Like, race, like back, like 11 years ago, racism was much more normalized. I know he's a comedian. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't be held accountable. I would say that I doubt that he makes those jokes now. Right? I doubt that he makes those jokes now. So I would say it sounds like he's moved on, though. It's not exactly the I'm not exactly the one that can you know, forgive him for that. Jesus Christ.
I did not, nor would I ever say that black people are apes, but it sure fucking sounded like that. And I immediately afterwards said, that's a racist thing to say. Planet of the Apes wasn't even in Africa. I was just saying there's a lot of black people there. But then I went on to talk about what a positive experience it was and how much fun it was.
Did you say this on stage, or I don't understand?
Go to see this movie in a black neighborhood. It wasn't a racist story, but it sounded terrible.
I'm gonna
like I said, you can have clunky stories about anything, but not about race. And so I deleted that whole podcast, but obviously somebody made a clip out of it and taken out of context. It looks terrible, but it looks terrible even in context. It's a fucking idiotic thing to say. And I was just trying to be entertaining. I certainly wasn't trying to be racist. And I certainly would.
That's one of those things. He's like, yeah, you were. And that I think gets down to like the actual point of what's happening here is that back in the like it it was funny to be racist. Like, listen, edgy jokes tend to be bigoted. Like, edgy jokes tend to be bigoted in some capacity, and especially when you're making jokes that are like on the line of comedy, on the line of what is and isn't acceptable in like a certain time period. That line is constantly moving, and so like, there might be jokes that I make on my YouTube that I think are just silly, fun little like, haha, women smell. That 10 years from now could be like, wow, that's really misogynistic, because we might shift so drastically that those jokes may be not palatable anymore. And, that's one of those problems. It doesn't make it right, but we also, I think it's reasonable to acknowledge this was 11 years ago. Again, this isn't like an apology I can give. I'm advocating from the ignorant white man's perspective. Because that's all I can do. I know it sounds so crazy. I know that sounds wild. Like, how can you argue from the ignorant white man's perspective? But, like, white people, when it comes to this shit, are so fucking dumb. And, like, I was, and probably still am, a dumb fucking white person. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've said some dumb shit. You're like, haha, that's funny. And you don't realize the depth of what you're saying, how stupid it is. Explain how we're dumb. I like how, okay, whatever. So white people are very dumb when it comes to race. And yeah, man, it's just like, it's one of those things where it takes a while to learn. And unfortunately, we're going in the right direction. But, it's like the intention of a white person making a racist joke, usually, at least in this context, I would say isn't to be racist, it's to be funny and to be shocking. I think that's the problem, because a lot of people's intention to make, when they make edgy jokes, is to be racist. I don't think that Joe Rogan was trying to be. I think he was like, haha, like funny bigot moment, funny like funny joke moment, edgy, you know what I mean? And I understand that, I understand that, man, because I'm a dumb fucking white guy when it comes to race, and all you can really do is try your best, and you'll never get it, because like, I think about that. When we're ever gonna get, am I ever truly gonna get it? Probably not, because I'm never gonna be able to have an experience that would allow me to understand it. So nobody truly will be able to understand.
Never want to offend someone for entertainment with something as stupid as racism. My hope is that, look, I can't go back in time and change what I've said. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. But I do hope that this can be a teachable moment for anybody that doesn't realize how offensive that word can be coming out of a white person's mouth, in context or out of context. My sincere and humble apologies. I wish there was more that I could say, but all of this is just me talking from the bottom of my heart. It makes me sick watching that video, but hopefully at least some of you will accept this and understand where I'm coming from. My apologies and much love. My sincere, deepest apologies and much love.
It was a decent apology, it wasn't too bad. I think it was pretty genuine, if anything else. Yeah, man, so this is all part of, like, honestly, it's one of those things where, like, this is part of them trying to cancel Joe Rogan, right? And obviously what he did was bad, but it's unfortunate that this is coming now, and it's not coming at, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, the problem is the way that it comes off is like, okay, Joe Rogan, we want to cancel Joe Rogan, right? We want to cancel Joe Rogan. Not me, but people want to cancel Joe Rogan. And so they're like, okay, what can we find to cancel him, to add on top of the shit stew? Rather than like, okay, like if it was any other time and they're just like, hey, look at these resurfacing clips of this, it would have been like, okay, we can deal with it within there. But now we're compounding everything. And I feel like, I feel like we shouldn't really cancel Joe Rogan. It's a cancellation attempt. I think that it's, I don't think that it's a positive thing to do, to be like, hey guys, let's just cancel people for like shitty past mistakes, especially if they own them up and they're like, yeah, that's not me anymore. It obviously depends on the severity, if you fucking do something horrible, but I mean, this isn't good, but yeah, man. And so I was going to talk about this, actually, Jon Stewart in a different segment today. I didn't realize that Joe Rogan said the N-word. I was going to talk about like Jon Stewart's perception on Joe Rogan. because I wanted to hear what Jon Stewart had to say, because I like Jon Stewart a lot. Like, if I had to point to anybody who is somebody that like I look up to, it would be Jon Stewart. I don't have like a whole lot of people that I do that when it comes into it. Like, I didn't start really getting into politics until I was like 26. And I'm 31 now. And so like this is really where I started was John. I was watching. I think it was a time where Jon Stewart was no longer the Daily Show host. And that's when I started watching a lot of Jon Stewart and his old stuff. And I remember watching his, he was advocating for 9/11, you know, the first responders and whatnot to be able to get increased funding so that they could have they could be hospitalized and like they can get the treatment that they need. Because, you know, obviously when the towers went down, there's still people who have long-term negative impacts today. And he was just a very raw, very emotional, very intelligent, very honest person. So let's watch a little bit of this. Let's watch a little bit of this here.
I want to know your thoughts on Spotify.
Because it's about cancellation of Joe Rogan. If I didn't make that, if I didn't mention that, this is about this is Jon Stewart's. You know, he's basically like, you know, should we cancel Joe Rogan? And this is on his new Apple thing, The Problem with Jon Stewart, which I think I have to buy. I'm going to start watching this, but okay.
Neil Young pulling his music off it. Because, you know, we're on a podcast platform, so it's a little meta.
Joni Mitchell, too.
First of all, I love Neil Young and I love Neil Young's music. But the idea that it was worth $4 billion in value to Spotify caught me off guard. That's all I'm going to say. Listen, I'm a Cinnamon Girl fan as much as the next guy. Buffalo Springfield, sure. I'll sing that while watching old Vietnam documentaries. But when he pulled his music off of Spotify and Spotify went down, I was like, that doesn't seem right. I mean, it's value, but that caught me off guard.
It's a real bummer when, you know, in order to make your activist ploy for Spotify to stop spreading disinformation, that like you actually need to call Taylor Swift.
But she has spread disinformation as well. She's out there saying that Jake Gyllenhaal is not a stand-up individual. And I will say this, I don't even think he has the scarf. I'll be fucking honest with you. I don't think
he's worn the scarf.
That could be any scarf.
No, that's the scarf. Also, okay. Did you see the photo shoot he did
with the scarf?
Recently?
Yes.
With the scarf on and her little red glasses, he did a magazine spread taunting the song.
John, this is the first time I'm going to say this, but listen, I have fought like the online legions for you, but I do not fuck around with Swifties. So you are on your own.
Absolutely.
Boss. Swifties will find where you live.
You know, everybody talks about woke cancel culture and the online mobs. You haven't stepped in shit until you've stepped to One Direction or BTS or Taylor Swift. I don't care if you're a political activist on the right or the left. You have no idea. I've gotten less blowback from Israel Palestine than I did for like a One Direction joke. But let me go back to your original point, Chelsea, which is how do you feel? And this is going to be a blanket statement.
Okay.
And I would say this: don't leave, don't abandon, don't censor, engage. I'm not saying it's always going to work out fruitfully, but I'm always of the mindset that engagement, and especially with someone like a Joe Rogan, who is not, in my mind, an ideologue in any way. And I think the proof of that was, I don't know if you remember, there was a guy who went on his podcast named Josh Zepps, they were talking about, I think Joe said, myocarditis. Kids shouldn't get the vaccine because it causes a higher risk of myocarditis. And Josh said, well, actually getting COVID is a higher risk of myocarditis for kids, so they should get vaccinated. He said, no, it's not. I said, no, I think it is. He goes, no, I'm pretty sure it's the other way. And they looked it up. And when they looked it up, it came out that it's a much greater risk if you get COVID and you're, 8 to 12 or 6 to 15 or whatever the age range was. It's a much greater risk of myocarditis catching COVID than it is getting the vaccine. And if you are an ideologue,
I know what he's talking about. I remember watching that. And like, it was so interesting. It's so interesting because Joe Rogan, I don't know what the fuck myocarditis is, but basically, Joe Rogan was of the belief that you would have an increased chance of getting this if you got vaccinated. It turns out having COVID is, there's a higher chance of getting myocarditis rather than actually. There's a higher chance of getting myocarditis if you get COVID than getting vaccinated. A lot of people probably remember this. And Joe was like, no, it's not. And then he kept getting pushed. And then eventually the guy made Joe look kind of stupid. And Joe was like, oh, shit. Right? Inflammation of the heart. Okay, thank you. And a lot of people looked at that and said, like, see, Joe Rogan doesn't listen. And I was like, well, Joe Rogan did listen. Joe Rogan did listen, and it seems like he changed his stance on that. And that was one of those interesting things. Is like I think that's what people respect about Joe Rogan, is that when he's wrong, listen, everybody, this is the thing, everybody's stubborn about being right and wrong. And so, there's a certain threshold everybody has to hit. And we're gonna pull up paint, right? So here's I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna represent this. Everybody's stubborn. Here's the spectrum, and everybody on your spectrum of stubbornness, right, has a point where they're willing to turn away based on information that's presented to them, right? So, like, let's say this is like a factual line. Some people have to get pushed to like this point. You have to beyond prove something. It's like, hey, this is factually incorrect. And then it's like, no, it's not. And you have to like over prove it to them to get them to push. You have to like really push them on it. Some people who are like really just looking for confirmation bias are super set in their ways all the way over here. People who are pushovers generally require, and like not for nothing, but like I know it sounds silly, but people who are pushovers don't even need to hit this line, you know? And so most people, they hear information and they're skeptical of it, which is a reasonable thing. And you have to be pushed over your line to be able to do it. So like, you'll be wrong about something. Someone's like, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Here's my proof of it. Then you have to sit there and you're like, okay, wait. And then it's like, okay, am I wrong or not? That's the defining moment. And I don't think that Joe Rogan's somebody who can't like admit he's wrong. He got fucking nay-nayed, and you know, now we know. But I think it's a good thing because he doesn't fucking, because at least he tries. I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people value that. Like, he tries when it comes down to it. So I like this approach of like, yeah, engage with him, especially somebody who's willing to be engaged with and somebody who is willing to change their mind. That's the best way, because when you cancel somebody and you censor somebody, everybody who already believes that thing, that believes in Joe Rogan, are going to double down and commit to Joe Rogan. But if you can convince Joe Rogan he's wrong about a particular thing by approaching it in like a cordial manner, then what that's going to do is it's going to change everybody's mind who, Joe Rogan, who identify with Joe Rogan. Because there are some people that his words will influence, but then there are also people who are looking to Joe Rogan as well. And so like you can really change people's like minds by changing one person's mind. That's like the biggest thing. And so I tend to agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
If you are a dishonest person, that is the moment. Like Tucker Carlson in that situation never would have looked it up and would have given that look he gives like somebody's giving him a confusion enema. Like they're just like they're just firing confusion up his ass. And Joe just went like, I didn't know. Oh, okay, I didn't get that. And that to me says, oh, that's a person that you can engage with. And so I think all the overblown rhetoric about him. And here's the other thing. Like, you're a musician. Like, how much misinformation is spread by, like, Eric Clapton is on platforms that you're on, and he's a fucking psycho. So do you remove yourself from every platform? By the way, do we only do these conversations so that I will get in trouble?
Yes, I think that's all we do now. Is we go, John, who do you want to piss off today? Neil Young fans, Taylor Swift fans, or Eric Clapton fans?
I love them all, but my point is we all exist in this world and on this planet. And there's no question that there is egregious misinformation that's purposeful and hateful and all those other things. And that being moderated is a credit to the platforms that run them. But this overreaction.
This is the face I believe he's talking about. Just this dead fucking face where he just is so confused, doesn't understand anything. He's Tucker Carlson's a fucking asshole.
To Rogan, I think is a mistake. That run them. But this overreaction to Rogan, I think is a mistake. I really do. And
do you think it gives him power to react in this way versus if you actually wanted to say something
no,
against his?
Joe Rogan has power because so many people listen to him. But that
because of the elk meat.
Yeah, let me go back because you're right, Jay. Jay Rogan has power because of elk meat. And that is what allows him to have the energy to have all the, but he has 4-hour conversations and they are expansive. And he may say some things that you think is misinformation and he may platform people that you think are wrong, but to single that out as something so egregious as to have to be, I just don't, I think there are dishonest bad actors in the world. And identifying those is so much more important to me. And I also think sometimes those grand gestures of I'm removing myself doesn't necessarily take into account, like you're on Comcast, right? Comcast or
I would cum my pants if Jon Stewart talked to Joe Rogan, because Jon Stewart, I love Jon Stewart. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's an incredible person. I would love it if he went and talked to Joe Rogan. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, Joe Rogan's saying dumb shit. So who's the advocate to speak against those things, right? So instead of deciding to leave a platform so that to flex and try to remove somebody who to a lot of people represents a lot of freedom of speech. Because listen, let's be honest here. The people who resonate with the most people tend to be more ignorant people, right? That's Joe Rogan's like he's a fucking man's man. He's a normal dude just speaking his mind, whether it's like dumb or not. And a lot of people that resonates with people because I think a lot of people are afraid to just speak their mind. Even when he's wrong, and then when he's wrong, he usually holds himself accountable. I honestly, he'll admit that he's like, hey, I fucked up. So why not say like, hey, well, what about such and such, or what about like, hey, what about Jon Stewart? I see in this comments here. I don't know what this video from Russell Brand is. Russell Brand's another very intelligent person. Why not advocate for Jon Stewart or Russell Brand to talk, or fucking other Daily Show host? I forget why the fuck do I remember? I don't remember his name, but somebody that's like pretty intelligent to go on the platform and say like, hey, talk to this person about this thing, and like corner him into a debate, like force him into like a conversation, more of a conversation than a debate, with somebody that's like honest, like a good person that would represent your perspective, right? That makes a lot more sense to me, rather than be like, I'm just gonna pull my music off here because it means nothing to you because you're already rich, so you don't really care. And like, what is the outcome is not positive. John's been on before. Let's have John on again to question Joe Rogan on particular things. Tell Spotify you need to have a good representation of logic and common sense. Go and debate Jon Stewart, or I'll leave the platform, rather than say it's either him or me. Doesn't that make more sense? I feel like that makes more sense. But I think people are really we are much less violent of a society as we used to be. Back in the day, we used to beat each other with fucking rocks and throw people into like the gladiator arena. And so the only thing that's left for some people is this is like canceling people. It brings out their visceral feeling, and it also makes you feel important. Makes you like it really brings it out. It really makes you like it really pumps you up. Then that anger. That's why when you see a lot of content creators online, the more divisive ones also tend to be popular. When they're not somebody that's generally identifiable, it's more of the divisiveness. And I know Joe Rogan can be divisive, but like the intentional ones, the people who are like looking for fights and like looking to like just scream and yell and go those people tend to gravitate towards those people as well. Because people have a very toxic trait of they want controversy, and so they'll generate controversy if they can't find it.
Time Warner. So if you're on any cable station, right, they've got Fox News on. You telling me Fox News isn't a willful purveyor of misinformation, dishonest to its core? So now everybody on TV has to pull out of their fucking shows or deplatform because in the same tube that you exist, they exist. I've been in his position on a much smaller scale, where people suddenly look to you as, by you doing it, by you platforming someone. That's the big word they use. You're platforming someone, and you don't push back hard enough, or you don't do it to the manner that they would do it. Once you go down that road of, if you have a lot of listeners and you say something that's either incorrect or possibly harmful, we are in competition for ideas and minds. And unless you can come up with, it's sort of like, we used to talk about this with the war on terror, right? I always thought one of the biggest reasons why the war on terror was such a fucked idea was the general strategy of it was 19 people who were extremists took action and bombed the World Trade Center and did this terrible thing and killed 3,000 people. And so we were going to go bomb the shit out of that country until 19 people wouldn't want to do that anymore.
No.
Meanwhile, it was hatched in like a basement in Hamburg. And the world is interconnected through ideas. Like, unless you have a bomb that can...
Yeah, I mean, if anything, that's going to make people want to do it again more, like as a response thing. It's like an emotional response, which I understand it. But then like when you put it like that, yeah, that's fucking dumb.
Kill ideas. You're just chasing, it's a doomed strategy. Like, make better arguments. I'm not saying that it'll work, but you can't cloister yourself to what's out there. You have to know. You have to.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to a niche point within that, I'll say is that, and this is something that I struggle a lot with my internet content, is that when you are one of the people with a platform speaking and you travel in the waters of empathy, wanting to do better, wanting to do the right thing, and you mess up, people react way differently than if Joe Rogan traveling in the waters of like, let's, maybe vaccines are bad for you, don't take them. Like, he could mess up and will never face consequences in the way that if you're known for trying to do the right thing, you will face intense consequences. Like, the scale is off.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I get that. Okay. The way that I would interpret it is like, I know that conservatives tend to get canceled pretty heavily, but progressives cancel other progressives that make mistakes at like drastically higher rates than conservatives cancel other conservatives. It's insane how toxic like more progressive ideology can be. If you don't believe like a specific thing that someone else believes, then like you're a fucking animal. Like, a lot of people label me as like a fucking a conservative, like you're just a conservative individual because I don't agree with like socialism or necessarily, because I'm a universal basic income guy. I love UBI. I like the idea of like a slow transfer. Like, I'm fine with the universal health care as long as we maintain a private option for now to feel it out. I like progressive slow change. But that's not radical enough. And they don't hear the general like lefty talking points from me. And I also don't hate conservatives, and I'll have conversations with like, I don't fucking care as long as you're respectful. But you know what I mean? It's not enough. Like, you have, if in order to be like a progressive, you have to think that the term conservative is a curse word. And I could totally see that, like trying to do the right thing and you fail, because it happens all the time, bro. I don't understand how people, they feel like they're so above criticism. Like, everything, like you fuck something up and it's like, dude, it happens all the time. Everybody does it every day. The difference is that some people just aren't willing to admit it. They'll fuck up and double down. Most content creators that I see on like YouTube fuck up constantly, but they don't admit it. And so like, I fuck up and like, I'll be like, hey, I fucked this up, because I'm still going through like, ideas and coming to my terms. Hey, I fucked up. So it's like, yeah, I fucked up. Let's say I fuck up like, I don't know, once a month. I don't know, maybe once a week. Who knows? I fuck up like once a month though, or maybe once a week. Let's just say it's once a week. These other content creators are fucking up twice a week, but they don't admit it. So you don't say that's a fuck up because you're already in that sphere. You're in their echo chamber. So you're like, they didn't fuck up. Blah, blah. I'm like, okay, I fucked up, so I'll need change, and that's why I fuck up less. People who admit that they fuck up less than people who don't admit it. Most big content creators are fucking up constantly, but they feel jerked off by their fans who are just like, yeah, whatever you say, because a lot of people, unfortunately, don't think critically. They don't care. They're like, I like person always right. That's literally the line of logic. And they will fucking reprogram themselves. They'll allow themselves to get reprogrammed by the content creator that they choose. Because it's just easy. It's like, yeah, I like this person. He is not bad. You know what I mean? It's like, holy fuck. Hold people accountable. Hold your own people accountable. It's crazy, man. And it's fucking psychotic. And honestly, I'm surprised Joe Rogan even took the L on the fucking whatever mito balls. You know what I'm talking about? Mitocarditis. Because he's at a place where he could just pretend nobody matters, and he doesn't. But the more cancellations he's gonna get, the more skeptical of the left he's gonna get, and the less he's gonna fucking give a shit. It's crazy stuff, man. It's crazy.
Chelsea, if I go on Twitter, there's not,
especially since like, bro, like Joe Rogan does a podcast every day. It's like once a month Joe Rogan fucks up. Let's say. People call him out for it. It's like, bro, but they'll only amplify the worst thing that he's ever done. And I understand that's kind of how it works, but like, think about that. It's like, yeah, he did 30 episodes this month, and 1 out of 30 had misinformation. It's like, okay, well, that's not good. Of course, he needs to be called out, but you're acting like that's him. 1 out of 30. It's like, come on, what percentage is that? Like 3 and change? Okay, what the fuck's wrong with you?
I don't have to go on there more than 30 seconds before I can find somebody letting me know what they will never forgive me for. One of the biggest questions I always used to get asked was,
I don't understand that.
Why do you have O'Reilly on your show? And I go, well, I have people in my family that are to the right of him, and I still talk to them. So why not talk to him? And I feel like you have to engage. Like,
him and Bill O'Reilly are like big friends. I saw them have like debates before. But like, he's constantly questioning Bill O'Reilly. And the reality is that people are conservative whether you like it or not. And trying to chastise them and push them away from the table makes them more conservative. You're better off like remaining empathetic towards that person and having conversations with them. Especially since there's apparently, possibly, it's been studied, there's a reasonable assumption that there is a biological factor in the way that we think and like perceive information. And so like part of conservatives is biological. Part of progressives is biological. All of our political ideology is a mixture between social and biological, things, right? So maybe, I don't know, fucking bald-headed white people, because people say it all the time. It's like a joke. Or I say it all the time as a joke. I look like a racist white conservative fuck. Maybe I am biologically, but I've been socialized as far away from that as possible. I'm doing it myself. I'm trying to engage. So it's like one of those things where if we didn't create spaces for people to be able to be like socialized away from like bad behavior, like bad ideologies, not just being conservative, but like, the negatives that could potentially come with being conservative. Not that there aren't negatives coming with being progressive. I've seen racism all over the place. It just manifests in different ways. Then like, how would I become better? That's just one more person being shitty. It's going to be more than one person. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a lot of people,
How do you not engage with people? Like, the whole point of engagement is hopefully clarification. Now, you may not get it. It may be a fool's errand, but I will never give up on engagement. And by the way, I'm more worried about the algorithm of misinformation than the purveyor of misinformation. Misinformation will always be out there, but if the algorithm drives people further and further down the rabbit hole, the fucking algorithm is the amplifier and the catalyst of extremism. And if you can, I would much rather fuck with the algorithm than deplatform and all these other things.
And Maria talked.
I wonder what he means by the algorithm. Like, is he talking about the literal Spotify algorithm, or is he talking about something else? I don't understand what he's talking about.
Maria Ressa.
Maria talked about that in the Freedom episode, how an algorithm can push you further into whatever ideas were kind of expressed within your first search history, and how you can continue to go in.
Okay, now I understand what they're talking about. They're talking about like the literal algorithm, not on Spotify. I think they're talking about just on the way that you can look for information. Okay, I think I understand what they're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think what they're saying is it's time for Pablo to pull out paint. So everybody's like all of your shit, the information that you receive is the information that you basically want to receive. So you know how you have targeted ads? I turn them on all the time for like mobile games, So you'll play your mobile game, and it's like, oh, my phone looks like shit. What the fuck's wrong with you? You have a mobile game, right? Beep, bop, boop. That's what it's called, Among Us. It's called a little Among Us. I don't know. This is your cell phone. It looks like an Among Us. And you turn on targeted ads. It doesn't even matter if it's a game or if it's like anything. Usually you'll have targeted ads because it's better for advertisers and kind of you. I mean, it kind of manipulates you into buying things you probably don't need. But you get things that you like to get. So I get mobile gaming ads on like TikTok. We'll use TikTok. I get like mobile gaming ads when I go through TikTok. Other people probably get like fucking makeup. Maybe they'll get makeup. I'll draw a little lipstick. Right? Look at that. So nice. Maybe they'll get makeup. Maybe you'll get like a school. I don't know. I'm fucking drawing. Maybe you'll get a school loan. Maybe you'll get a something for like ADHD, which I got sometimes. Right? You're gonna get things that you usually like to see, or maybe you need to see, or something like there's a higher chance if you're going to see it. Maybe you'll see titties or wieners, whatever. The same thing happens when you search on social media at all. So like, let's say you're somebody who is, maybe you're somebody who's like, we have left and we have right. Maybe you're somebody who's like right of the system a little bit. And you're a little bit right leaning. Nothing wrong with that. And then you're on YouTube, and all of a sudden, YouTube starts feeding you an algorithm of things that you might like to see. That's great. Ben Shapiro, right? Oh, shit. Maybe that pushes you a little farther right. And then maybe you get Alex Jones. And then you slowly, your search history is so tailored to what you want to see, or they think you'd want to see, that you continuously go further right. Then we call that the alt-right pipeline. But the same thing happens like in a little bit of a left space. Like you might be somebody who like maybe you're a little left-leaning and you're looking into stuff, and then like, okay, maybe you find fucking, I don't know, maybe you find Papa God, right? And then maybe it pushes you further, and then you find like Elon or something. Then you keep going, and you find like Hassan. And it just keeps going to the left. All of a sudden, you're an anarcho-communist, and you want to like start a revolution. Now, listen, I'm all for the revolution at some point. Listen, there will be a point that we get hit where we're gonna have to overthrow the government. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. I'm not an anarcho or anything, but if they keep oppressing us, we will have to do something about it. We're not there yet. Maybe 10, 15 years. We'll reevaluate every 5 years. How's that sound, guys? We'll reevaluate every 3 years. Maybe like 2025. We'll see where we're there. Right? But there are toxic aspects to both these ideologies. I know a lot of people are like, well, no, left is better than right. Sure, generally. You go all the way left and you're like an advocation for workers' rights. All the way to the right, you're a fucking race realist that hates black people. But also, like we were talking about before, some of the toxic aspects of being in like the left echo chamber is canceling people for not being left enough. Right? Part of the right obviously is worse, but still there are toxic aspects to both sides. I would say being left is better, but still, you understand my point. Rather than trying to give you like accurate information, they're going to give you the information you want. So like if you're more left leaning, eventually you're just going to like in your algorithm get more CNN articles. Or if you're right leaning, get more Fox. Now Fox is worse than CNN misinformation wise, but CNN is still not great, right? So you have these two dog shit platforms, and this is where you're getting a lot of your information from. And like all of a sudden, it's feeding you what you want, and it makes sense to do that. But the reality is that like this shit this is what's pushing people farther in negative ways. And so engaging with media that's not on your side necessarily, I think, is a good idea. Anyway,
either direction. And that to me is like, that's scientific. And that's like also like innumerable, because it just kind of throws stuff at you faster than you can blink.
Nobody stops to take a breath and think about what's being said. Nobody stops. That you're not there to take a breath. You're there. It's all a bullfight. Where's my red cape?
Also, Twitter is
that makes sense too. Like it's a constant overload of information. Like that's actually a good point too. There's a lot of information on the internet, and they're just constantly feeding you more and more and more, and you can't really stop and think like, oh shit, is this correct information? Right? That's one of those things. It's like, oh, is this correct information? Right? So like on a right-leaning scale, they might tell you some like vaccine misinformation, like, oh, this, that, blah, 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 blah. They're just rapid firing at you, like, oh my god, vaccines cause babies' heads to fucking explode. And then you just keep going. It's like, oh, heads explode. Oh, your dog's going to die. Oh, it's going to give you like horrible diarrhea. And then all of a sudden, like all these like vaccine misinformations are continuously pushing him. And you're getting hit so fast, you don't know what the fuck's going on. And you're just like, these must be true because I don't have time to process it. I have no time to fact check it. And it's not really in your head. This is one of those things. And it happens for lefties too, right? I remember we were all talking about how Medicare for all would be cheaper than our current healthcare plan, which would be true if it was perfectly idealized. That would be great, but like we also live in like but nobody checked that. Everybody's like, it's cheaper. Medicare for all is cheaper. The Koch brothers did a study, and it's like, yeah, they did a study based off the best case scenario that Bernie Sanders said. I'm not saying we shouldn't have like universal healthcare, but like there wasn't. I don't even think that there was like the cost of a doctor's visit wasn't even part of that. Really, it wasn't even in there. It's like, how much does a doctor cost? I don't fucking know, right? So it was like the best case scenario factors, but like how does it factor into the real world? Ideally, it sounds great, but like practically it doesn't. And it's like we get so much information shot at us, we don't check to see like, well, what's the part of this information that I should be skeptical about? Because you're constantly just getting bombarded with information. So
not for nuance, and Twitter is not for context. Both of those things can't exist there. If you tweet with nuance and context, you will. Like,
just to go into the Medicare for all thing more, because I know people are going to cry about it. Just because the government might say, hey, we're only going to pay you $5 for certain medication, doesn't mean that the insurance provider can't go like, oh, well, I'm going to charge more, the consumer more then, right? They can't really stop stuff like that. Ideally, they could, but that's a lot of change. We'd have to make quite a substantial amount of progress, which is why I'm for universal health care with a private option for now. See if it works out public only, and then hey, maybe we eventually get to public only. I don't really know. I really just care about more what works and gives more people health care and not die. But
will barely exist there.
By the way, when it comes to not dying, we also need to regulate our fast food better. Just throwing that out there, because in other countries, McDonald's is healthier. Fucking mind blowing, because we don't ban the same chemicals in America. So maybe we should do that. I'm being serious, bro. It's fucking insane. McDonald's is healthier in other countries because we don't ban horrible chemicals that they put in McDonald's. Could you fucking believe that?
It's not.
The aggregators are there to distill things to their greatest potential energy. And their greatest potential energy is what's the most inflammatory.
Yeah.
Do you get my point? Like they're all
Yes,
making this idea of
absolutely.
like, we've got to remove this from Spotify. And you're like, no, you've
Engage.
got to engage on Spotify, and you've got to figure out a way to neuter the algorithms. That's where the true pain is.
And I will say, when you're talking about you got to engage, that's where it is. This is where I need you to go on Twitter. When someone says, I will never forgive Jon Stewart for this, you write back. You say, please
forgive me.
Please forgive me. What can I do? I need you writing back to every individual.
I do not need my boss to become a reply guy. I don't need that to happen.
I don't even bother replying on some of these things. I don't even bother replying in Twitter. Because it's one of those things where people have a particular mindset. The only reply I might give on comments is like, you can watch this video, like the Deaf Noodles bullshit drama that happened, where like, I listen. I should have been nicer to that 15-year-old kid, but I was focusing more on like my take, which was like the basically the issue of over maturing a young black boy in order to sentence him for something, which has been a historical issue, and it gets into a big conversation. People are like, you're disgusting, blah, 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 blah. If I respond like, hey, you're a fucking moron, because you don't actually listen. You watched the video, idiot, and you didn't think about what I'm saying. They're only there for a confirmation bias on what's being said. They're not there to listen to what I'm saying. They're just there to be like, oh, I don't like you. It's like, okay, there's nothing I can do. So me being mean to them is just going to push them away further. So I just shut the fuck up. Or I say, you can watch this video. Or I just, you know what I mean? Because that's not going to be helpful. But a lot of times, and this is something that I'm very aware of, and the reason why I don't like super respond to a lot of stuff, is because I understand that sometimes information takes a long time to seep into your fucking brain, right? So, you might, like, it's happened to me before too. I remember there was a Neil deGrasse Tyson talked to Ben Shapiro one time. This was months ago, and he said something along the lines of like, "Why are you asking this question?" Because Ben Shapiro was being very logical, and I forget what the question was. And I remember like going in on deGrasse Tyson, I'm like, "This is stupid. This guy's an idiot." And then later, it really seeped in. It's like, wait, that's a good point. Why are you asking the question? Like, what? Because that's a big deal. You know, like, why are you, like, for instance, we watched this thing of like, what makes people gay? Right? And scientists studied it. Now, scientists study it because they're just simply fascinated in the phenomenon of gay people, because you would think that it goes against our biological imperatives. So like, why is that happening? That's interesting. That's great. If you're asking why are people gay so that you can create rhetoric to kill them, that's a different story. So the reason of asking questions is now something that I think about a lot. And it took months for it to like hit my head and be like, wow, that's the point he's making. And so I try to shut the fuck up and let people process my information. And sometimes you're just taking a dump and it hits the water a certain way, and that splash makes you feel some kind of memory from 30 years ago, and then that memory somehow chains into another memory, and then all of a sudden you're back to thinking about what Papa Gut said 6 months ago. That's a real weird fucking thing that happens, man.
Because then before you know it, John's like, "What? Did you know your feet are out in this pic? I don't need him to be there.
What if I only reply on grammatical errors? What would that be? I think you meant THEIR, not THEY''RE. Here's the thing that you always have to remember. You cannot outsmart the crowd. You cannot outsmart the mob. So you can't be circumspect. You can't be. You have to try and express yourself as clearly and as purely as you can.
True, man.
And fucking come what may.
It's true, bro. You know how many times people, like, I've had some takes and like, you know, that have been like I believed in, but I've expressed them in a really bad way, and it's hard to get everybody to, like, you know, people who know me are like, I know what you meant, Papa Gut, but you didn't express it. People who don't know me are like, you're a fucking asshole. And it's like, I'm trying my best. You know, it's so hard to relay information perfectly. You know,
and because there is no way to formulate an opinion in this world that will not bring you from some corner you didn't see some form of scorn and retribution. True. And contempt and criticism. And you just have to try and sift through and see, like, is there anything constructive in that? And if not, fucking move on.
Yeah, like I could say I hate bananas, and people would say, "Oh, so Jay is homophobic."
Wow, can I say something?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that when we hired you.
Oh,
and
no.
Now, so here's the thing. I am pulling my music. Can I tell you something? I've always, like, just imagine being so good at music that you want something and you're like, you will do this or I will pull my music. Like, that's such a fucking, like, I would love to have created something that so moves people that I could actually, as a lever of power and force, say to them, you will do this or I will remove my music from
John,
your
you also
life.
have to have a catalog.
I will remove my melody.
You have to have a catalog for that to
go.
work.
That's
you
right.
can't have 2 albums. You can't even have 4 albums. You have to have...
Oh, you got to have a catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it didn't work, which is what upsets me.
Or just the song Driver's License.
Oh, yes,
you don't need
yes,
a catalog for that. That song has such emotive power that removing that, I believe, also could.
I'm assuming
another group of stands online that will attack you mercilessly. You can even say, I like Olivia Rodrigo. I think she will grow up to be an amazing star. And they'll be like, she's already a fucking star, Jay. How fucking dare you? Did you write Driver's License?
Sorry, I got the wrong one. That was not a Neil Young song. I know the song that they're talking about because my wife showed it to me, and I was like, "What?" Well, she didn't show. Well, I guess I didn't see it. I heard it, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I just didn't care. But okay.
I want to say that one's not hypothetical. I watched this happen to Jay online.
You know, it's like when you do a show and like there's 5 people that hate you, and you can always, like, you watch a show, you kill. You always look and you be like, there's people there that are like, I don't buy this, and I really wish we had gone to see something else. but I don't have to ride home with them and hear them talk about it. And that's what you have now with Twitter. But I don't want to. I think it's so much more powerful to engage. And there's something about I'm going to take my ball and go home that I don't like. And especially with someone as much as I respect Neil Young, because the dude's got balls and he's an interesting guy. And not only does he have great music, but he's got just like a fascinating mind. And I think, and I'm sorry to hear that's how this will play out.
Actually, the actual strategy Neil Young should have done, I just realized it. He should have put out a soundbite or a headline where it says, Joe Rogan says J-Lo can't actually sing. And then he will get all of J-Lo's fans to cancel him immediately. And that is the only strategy we have going forward.
Interesting. All right. And then there's just one last clip I want to watch real quick.
Is weighing in on.
So and this is before the N-word thing, but I'm still curious to watch it. But we have Jon Stewart says Joe Rogan controversy is overblown.
The ongoing Joe Rogan Spotify controversy after artists like Joni Mitchell and Neil Young demanded that their music be removed from the streaming platform as a stand against the COVID-19 vaccine misinformation being spread specifically on the Joe Rogan Experience. Yeah, on the latest episode of The Problem with Jon Stewart, the TV host.
Okay, we've already
say some things that
we've already watched this. Fuck you, trying to get me to clickbait watch that. Anyway, yeah, man, I agree with Jon Stewart. I love Jon Stewart. I think he's a phenomenal person. He's an incredible intellect. He's an incredibly genuine guy. And he's really good at expressing himself. And like, as weird as it sounds, that's what I try to do. Because I've been in cases where I've reacted very adversely to criticism. We've all been there. And I get very angry when people don't understand what I'm saying. And I still get upset. Because, there's times where you're saying something, where you're trying to communicate something, but you're just failing in something. And yeah.